Following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers, this is the TFN Geek. I apologize for being so long since I did my previous Transformers review, but life's gotten in the way, so hopefully I can get back on track. And today we're going to start off with a Transformers figure I've been wanting to review ever since I got it 2.5 weeks ago at my local Target store. And so here she is Transformers Generations Legacy Wave 2 Deluxe Class Autobot Elita-1. But it's getting to be a real mouthful to say the proper names of these Transformers action figures. But anyways, yes, here's Elita-1, and she's really impressive looking. One of the selling points that made me want to put Elita-1 at the top of my list of Transformers Legacy figures to collect is the simple fact that this is the first ever action figure of Elita-1 that it is an entirely brand new mold. Every previously released Elita-1 figure before the Legacy version of her that was released was a repaint and/or retool of a previously released Transformers figure. Power of the Prime's Elita-1 was a retool of Power of the Prime Starscream. Netflix Elita-1 was a retool of War for Cybertron Trilogy RC. And Elita-1, the Legacy version here, is an entirely brand new mold. That said, she is mold mates with another deluxe class figure in the Legacy line. And so for an in-box size comparison, here's Elita-1 next to her mold mate, Legacy Autobot Minerva. Minerva was scheduled to be a Walgreens exclusive here in the United States, but there's been no official word yet about what time what is the official release date for Minerva. I was lucky enough and I found a scalper on eBay who was selling Minerva for $60. I know that's a high price for a deluxe figure, but from what I've seen right now, it's uncertain when Minerva is going to be released, and actually it's uncertain right now if Minerva is going to be released as a Walgreens exclusive or if Hasbro has switched and she's going to be released exclusively somewhere else. But yes, so for a size comparison, here's Elita-1 next to Minerva. The artwork on their boxes of their vehicle modes are almost reversed. They're facing the opposite direction. So if you see a mostly pink car facing this direction, then right off the bat you'll know it's Elita-1. If you see a mostly white car facing this direction, then it's Minerva. And if there's any doubts as to further confusion, Minerva up here on the top of her box, the peg holder that allows them to be held by pegs. Minerva's is made out of cardboard, whereas Elita-1's is made out of plastic. And I've noticed that the two Legacy Deluxe class figures that are being sold as exclusives have a cardboard peg holder, while all the figures released at mass retail, like Elita-1 here, have plastic holders. So that's just a little packaging detail to let you know if you have a figure that's an exclusive or one that's a mass retail release. So here on the side of the box, you've got some artwork of Elita-1. You've got a close-up there of her face in robot mode. And down here on the box, you've got a zoomed-out version of that same image of her face. She's pointing angrily at something while she's holding her blaster in her other hand, and she's charging off into battle. On this side of the box, you've got the Autobot poster image for the Transformers Legacy line. Optimus Prime looking out at Cybertron. G1 Hot Rod, Prime RC, Blaster, and of course Bulkhead. And that's the poster image of the... I'm sorry, I thought that planned Optimus Prime was looking at Cybertron. It's Earth, because Cybertron's down here. But yes, Elita-1's box art, it's pretty decent for what it is. I forgot what I was going to say there for a moment. So here on the back of the box, you've got the official product photos. Here's Elita-1 in her robot mode, and in her vehicle mode, it's supposed to be a Cybertronian car. It's loosely based on her appearance, the vehicle mode she had in the G1 cartoon, which was seen one time for just a few seconds. It was partially hidden by Optimus Prime's vehicle mode, so any images you see of a full-blown a completed image of Elita-1 in her vehicle mode, it's actually fan art made by fans, since the official photos of her vehicle mode are partially hidden. So I've seen some fans who are really diehard fans of Elita-1 have said that the vehicle mode is very close to her animation model from the G1 cartoon. Others have said, who are more critical, not only of Elita-1 as a character, but of the Legacy figure, have said that her vehicle mode appears to be a mashup of her G1 and cartoon animation model, her appearance in IDW's comic books, along with the figure that she's mold mates with, which is Autobot Minerva that I'm trying to point to behind me. Yeah, there's Minerva. I'm pointing at her there. Or so. Yes, it's basically left up to your own opinion how G1 accurate you think Elita-1's vehicle mode is, and unfortunately that's one of the selling points for the Legacy Elita-1 figure, is that this version of her is supposedly far more G1 accurate compared to her previously released figure of the Orbit Cybertron Trilogy Netflix figure that was released as a Walmart exclusive 2 years ago in 2020, and I can't believe it's been that long since Netflix Elita-1 was released. But yes, she transforms back and forth between both modes in 14 steps, and overall she's really impressive looking. Unfortunately, like all the Legacy Deluxe class figures now, it's an open window, so you can, and if you wanted to, a new phenomenon that's happened with these open window boxes on Deluxe class Transformers figures is that the figures that are that have ball jointed heads, thieves have been reaching in and pulling the heads off and decapitating the figures, and then they're selling the heads on the internet for 3 or 4 times the price that the whole figure goes for. From what I've seen of the Legacy Deluxe class Wave 2 figures, another one that I have there in the background is Legacy Knockout. I already reviewed did a review on Tarantulas, and I did also find Wild Rider at my local Target store, but from what I've seen of the 4 Wave 2 Deluxe class figures from Wave 2 of Legacy, Elita-1 is the 3rd most hard to find of these figures. I have now seen Knockout and Tarantulas more often than I've seen Elita-1 and Wild Rider. The reason why I say Elita-1's the 3rd rarest is because the only copy of Wild Rider I've seen at my local Target store is the one that I purchased for myself and added to my collection. But in the weeks since I bought this copy of Elita-1, and I've seen at least 2 other copies of her at my local Target store, so Elita-1 is the 2nd most sought after deluxe figure of Wave 2 of the Legacy Deluxe class figures. Tarantulas is the 3rd sought after, and then poor Knockout back there, he's the one figure that's the shelf warmer. I've seen Knockout more often than I've seen the other 3, his 3 wave mates combined. And that said, when I found Elita-1 at my local Target store, that was the last copy of her. The other 2 copies I've seen on separate occasions. So yes, Elita-1 is one of the more sought-after deluxe figures of the Legacy line so far. So without further delay, let's get her out of her box and take a close look at her in her robot mode. Alright, and so here is Legacy Elita-1 out of her box and in her robot mode. Now, one thing to note about Legacy Elita-1 is that, according to the product photos and also the photos in her instruction sheet, this right here is the official configuration of Elita-1, and where you have the front tires on the front of her vehicle sticking up here and acting as a pair of faux shoulder towers, which is the same that Legacy Minerva comes packaged in. But in the reviews I've seen from collectors who've already looked at Elita-1, and this is one of only 3 configurations for Elita-1's backpack that you can transform it into. Now, one thing to note about Elita-1's backpack is right here, as you can see, there are no clips. Well, technically there's one little clip right here in the center that clips into a little slot there on Elita-1's back. But apart from that little clip, which is really weak, there are no clips or joints or pegs holding Elita-1's backpack together, so her backpack is held in place almost entirely by friction. And so one thing that a lot of collectors have pointed out is that you can wiggle it around into place. One thing you can do if you desire is, if you want Elita-1's backpack to not look so tall and enormous, you can rotate the wheels around and have them in this position like this. And I've actually mentioned it to a friend of mine. I commented on his video. I don't know if he responded yet, but I came up with names for the 3 configurations for Elita-1's backpack. So the configuration that it comes packaged in, which I'm showing off here with Minerva, where the front wheels are up and acting like a pair of shoulder towers, I call this configuration of the backpack attack mode. Ode meaning that Elita-1 is ready to attack an enemy. when the wheels are folded down like this behind her shoulders, I call this defense mode, where she's standing in defense against her enemies. And then the third configuration of Elita-1's backpack is the one that's the most straightforward, and it's surprising that you can do this. What you can do is rotate the wheels back to where they were before, only instead of rotating them and having them pointing all the way upward like that, you just rotate them back down, like so. Make sure you don't hit anything, and clip it into place. And this is the orientation that the wheels are in when you transform Elita-1 back into her vehicle mode, and some collectors have figured out that you don't even have to separate those front wheels from the hood section of Elita-1's vehicle mode, and you can have the entire front section of Elita-1's vehicle mode acting as her backpack. And I call this third configuration of the backpack, which is the, technically it's the untransformed armed configuration. I call this stealth mode. So, yeah, if you wanted, with that simple act of naming the 3 different configurations of the backpack, you can have Elita-1 give Legacy Elita-1 a transforming backpack, which I think that makes her even more fun and entertaining, and adds even more play value to her as a Transformers figure. So, yeah, the power of giving names to different transformations of Transformers figures, that's really impressive there. My personal favorite configuration of the backpack is defense mode, where the wheels are down like this, because it not only gives you an excuse to transform the wheels, but it distinguishes her from her mold mate. Some Transformers fans and collectors have pointed out that the official transformation of Elita-1's backpack with the shoulder towers, this is more accurate to Minerva's Generation 1 robot mode, where she had the front wheel sections of her vehicle mode sticking up on her shoulder, forming the top of her shoulders, and that's led some fans to believe that Elita-1 might actually be a pre-tool, and that Minerva was the character who was the intended use of this mold. I personally don't believe that. I think the mold was originally intended to be Elita-1, and Minerva was the afterthought character, because even though the vehicle mode does look vaguely reminiscent for Minerva's Generation 1 alt mode, I personally think that the vehicle mode does match up slightly more with Elita-1's animation model from the G1 cartoon. But yes, that's just a fun way of looking at her backpack and everything. For articulation, her head is on a ball joint, so it can rotate left and right 360 degrees. It can't really look up and down due to the size of the ball joint being really small. I apologize. I tried to show it off there for a second, but there's a glare from the sun shining into my bedroom right now. This is why I like to do my reviews at nighttime, so that the sunlight isn't glaring here. But anyways, Elita-1 has universal jointed shoulders, so her arms have the potential to rotate 360 degrees forward and backward at the shoulder, but her backpack gets in the way, and unfortunately the only way to have full articulation of Elita-1's arms at the shoulder joint is to have her backpack removed entirely, and unfortunately the entire backpack is held in place by a metal pin, so unless you have a hammer or a soldering iron to get that metal pin out of there, then Elita-1's backpack is permanently stuck there. Swivel joints at the bicep, hinge joints at the elbows, swivel joints at the wrists, which is nice because from what I've seen, Elita-1 can transform without having to rotate her hands, and so that's really nice. And then here on the bottom of the lower arms, there's 5mm ports. It's right there, so you can attach weapons to the underside of Elita-1's arms. Those ports are hexagon shaped to prevent the whatever weapons you put in there from swiveling around. And waist joint, swivel joint at the waist, so Elita-1 can look left and right at her waist 360 degrees. So that's really nice. The legs can only go outward this far due to how Elita-1's hips are shaped. You do have a swivel joint in the thigh. But again, due to how Elita-1's hips are shaped, where you have this where they're elevated up here versus down here at the actual thigh swivel, it does hinder some of the articulation in those joints. Hinge knees, so the knees can go 90 degree ease of movement. And you have ankle rockers, but unfortunately there's a, I don't know if you can hear that, but the swivel joints have a clip hit point that prevents them from going out too far, so without that clip joint, you can only get Elita-1's feet sprawled out that far. And with the clip joint activated, it sprawls the leg out that far, so can't really get Elita-1 into too much of a sprawl-legged pose. And that ankle rocker is the only joint in her feet. But in my opinion, Elita-1 does have a fairly decent amount of articulation. Moving on to her accessory pieces, with Hasbro's desire to try and get rid of plastic on the actual packaging that Transformers come with, accessory pieces, instead of being wrapped up in a plastic bag or a plastic seal, they're now wrapped up in rolls of construction paper. So this actually started with some of the figures released in the last waves of the Kingdom line, where the accessory pieces are kept up in pieces of paper, so just be mindful of that. So Elita-1 comes with 3 accessory pieces. This accessory piece is designed for Elita-1's vehicle mode, and it is a copy of the top of Elita-1's helmet. It's designed to go on this 5mm port right here that ends up on her backpack. This is the top middle roof of her vehicle mode. And the reason why Elita-1 comes with this fake helmet is the similar reason why the Legacy Leader class Blitzwing figure has the fake jet mode cockpit sticking out of the front of the tank mode. In the one scene in the Generation 1 cartoon when Elita-1 transforms from her vehicle mode to her robot mode head pops out of the top center of her vehicle mode the one time she's shown transforming in the G1 cartoon. And so this fake helmet sticking out of the roof is there for the sole purpose of mimicking that transformation Elita-1. So when Elita-1 transforms from her vehicle mode to her robot mode, her head pops up out of the top center of her vehicle mode. So that's the reason for the fake helmet sticking there out of the top. And for me personally, similar to the fake jet mode cockpit hanging off the front of Legacy Blitzwing's tank mode, that's an accessory piece. That's a nod to the G1 cartoon series that I think it's actually a little unnecessary. I think if they had left that helmet off, then you wouldn't have to use your imagination to pretend that Elita-1's head pops out of the top middle of her vehicle mode and just accept her transformation the way it is, where her head actually, I believe it sits under the hood of her vehicle mode. But for her other accessory pieces, she comes with 2 laser guns. One is slightly larger and the other one is slightly smaller. Unfortunately, there's no way of combining them other than having them attached to the sides of each other. They're almost the same length. One's just slightly bulkier than the other laser gun. And I don't know how accurate these weapons are since it's been a while since I watched the G1 cartoon show, but this actually follows the trend from the Netflix version of Elita-1 where her weapons are made out of clear blue plastic. That's a bit of a shame. I honestly wouldn't have minded if Elita-1's weapons had been made out of solid black plastic instead of this clear blue plastic. But overall, with these 2 laser guns in hand, Elita-1 is armed up and ready to fight the Decepticons. So for some size comparisons in robot mode, I've shown Minerva off inside the box for a while. I'm hoping to review Minerva in a couple of days now that I've gotten Elita-1's review done. But for a size comparison with another Elita-1 action figure, here is Legacy Elita-1 next to Netflix War for Cybertron Trilogy Elita-1, and standing here on her hoverboard, Netflix Elita-1, it does give the illusion of being slightly taller. Let's take the hoverboard off and straighten her legs out as best as we can. And so, with the hoverboard off, these 2 versions of Elita-1, they are almost the exact same size as each other. Legacy Elita-1 is slightly taller, but again, for the War for Cybertron trilogy, Elita-1's design, instead of being purely Generation 1, it was a mixture of her appearances from the Generation 1 series along with her appearance in IDW's comic books. And for the Legacy line, Hasbro and Takara tried to go full-blown Generation 1 with Elita-1's design. Some fans have pointed out that out, and I actually saw a video review where someone swapped the legs between these two versions of Elita-1, but if you were to do a leg swap between these two versions of Elita-1, then the Legacy version of Elita-1 would be even more accurate, since Elita-1 had legs that were similar in appearance to Generation 1 RC. So that's a bit of a distract. My apologies, I was distracted. I just noticed that there was some paint chipping right there on one of Elita's shoulders, so be mindful that out of the box you could see paint splotches where there aren't supposed to be any on Elita-1. But the point I'm trying to get is that, unfortunately, similar to RC, possibly even more so, we aren't quite there at the point where Hasbro and Takara Tomy can design an action figure of Elita-1 that's completely 100% accurate to her animation model from the Generation 1 cartoon series, while also having her transform into her vehicle mode. Most of the female Transformers characters from the Generation 1 series, they were given body designs that were much more human in proportions than robotic. And for most of the female Transformers action figures that we've gotten in recent years, Hasbro and Takara Tomy have just designed the vehicle mode to be a backpack dangling off of the robot mode, and so most of the fembots, as they're known by the Transformers fans, and they've been what's known as a shell former, where most of the vehicle mode just wraps around the robot mode. So even though it's not entirely G1 accurate, I actually enjoy seeing Legacy Elita-1 have parts of her vehicle mode form her robot mode, especially the back wheels forming her robot mode legs. I think that's a nice change of pace than previous fembot action figures that we've gotten. And for one last size comparison, you can't show off Elita-1 without her standing next to Optimus Prime. So yes, I always enjoy seeing Elita-1 and Optimus Prime standing next to each other. I've always loved the idea of Elita-1 being Optimus Prime's girlfriend, and likewise Optimus Prime being Elita-1's boyfriend. I've always loved that there's a romance amongst the Transformers, because it's a reminder that even though they're aided in a manner similar to how machines are created, they're robots that feel emotions. They're sentient life forms. They understand what love is. So I really enjoy seeing that here with Elita-1 and Optimus Prime standing next to each other. So for one last size comparison, there's Legacy Elita-1 next to War vs. Cybertron Trilogy Optimus Prime. I'm in. Yes, I'm really impressed with how her robot mode came out. So let's get her transformed, take a look at her vehicle mode, and we'll wrap up the review. Transformed into her vehicle mode, and yeah, again, I think they could have done without that fell helmet mimicking the fact that her head pops out of the top middle of her vehicle mode in the G1 cartoon show. I think that's a nod to the G1 series that the figure could have done without, and it still would be a very impressive figure regardless. But yeah, here's Elita-1 inside her transformed into her vehicle mode. Again, it's a Cybertronian car. Or doesn't look like any car see in real life. If it actually looks a little bit like a race car, sort of, with the racing spoiler here sculpted here on the back. But yeah, I do love how it came out overall. One gripe that I have, one little nitpick that I have, is that the white paint they used on the rims, it's not the best, and it's flaking on the rims of some of it. But overall, I do enjoy the different shades of red and pink that are used on here. I love that they painted the whole headlights white. The tail lights are unpainted red plastic. I think it would have been nice if they had been a slightly different shade of red to point out that they are tail lights. And yes, Elita-1's robot mode feet do stick out of the back of her vehicle mode, but I love how these 4 5mm pegs on the back make it look like she has rocket boosters there on the back, so you could plug blast effects on there, make it look like she's taking off like a rocket on Cybertron's roads. And there's only there's really no place to plug in Elita-1's laser guns. The only place to have them is sticking them onto the sides of her vehicle mode like this. One thing you can do if you want is you can plug them into each other if you desire, and you can take out her fake helmet and have it sticking there on the top of the vehicle mode like a fake, like a roof-mounted cannon is what I was meant to say. Okay, so apart from lack of weapon storage for her two laser guns, I do enjoy how Elita-1 came out. And one nice thing you can do is the slightly larger laser gun has 5mm ports on the side, so you can have it sticking upward. Unfortunately, there's no 5mm ports on the smaller laser gun, so it is attached to the side. Right? And if you don't want Elita-1 to be as and to have too wide of a vehicle mode, you can plug the laser guns on these 5mm ports down here, which were the ones on her lower robot mode arms. It does unfortunately interfere with the wheels, so if you want, you can have them. If you want the wheels free to spin around, you can have them angled up slightly. But yeah, unfortunately, Legacy Elita-1, that's the one gripe I have with her, is that in vehicle mode, there's no proper weapon storage for her laser guns. If you wanted to, you could attach them here on the back of her feet and have them look like a pair of you want to try and be creative, you could have them dangling here off the back of her robot mode feet and have them look like a pair of radio antennas sticking out of the back, sticking off the top of her in the back. Trying to get them straightened out. And that locking mechanism that Elita-1 had for her feet when they were in her robot mode position, that locking mechanism unfortunately only works on one side, so unfortunately the feet do want to flop open if you were to hold Elita-1 upside down like that, so there's nothing locking the feet in place, and one of them actually popped off, and I think that might have loosened the joint now a little bit. So if you don't want them flopping around, unfortunately the only place to do is have them in the robot mode position, and then you do end up opening the back of Elita-1's vehicle mode. But I'm willing to overlook that just for the fact of how G1 accurate and impressive looking this version of Elita-1 is. So for some size comparisons, once again, here is Legacy Elita-1 next to Netflix War for Cybertron Trilogy Elita-1. Bumper to bumper with the laser guns off. The Netflix version of Elita-1 is slightly longer, but Legacy Elita-1 is a taller car. They're about the same width. If Elita-1, the Legacy version of Elita-1, I believe, is it's 1mm wider than Netflix Elita-1, but it's a pretty close size. But it's pretty similar size as comparing the two of them with each other. But I do think that the Legacy version of Elita-1 has the Netflix version beat over due to the fact that, again, the vehicle mode and robot mode are slightly more accurate to her G1 appearance, but also in terms of longevity, Netflix Elita-1, her wheels are made out of clear blue plastic, while Legacy Elita-1's wheels are black plastic. So even though these wheels are pegged on, since they're made out of black plastic instead of clear blue plastic, Legacy Elita-1's wheels do have a chance of lasting a lot longer. Just so I don't lose them, I'll put her laser guns back on her. So if they had designed a way for the laser guns to store, for at least one of them to store here on the underside of her vehicle mode, I think that would have been a much better weapon storage for them, rather than having them just sticking off the sides like this. And for a special one last size comparison, here she is next to War for Cybertron Trilogy Optimus Prime. And of course, Optimus Prime doesn't want to cooperate now that he's on camera. But yeah, there's Elita-1 next to Legacy Elita-1 next to Optimus Prime. They are pretty impressive looking, and I just enjoy seeing them beside each other. And for those of you wondering, if you do have Legacy, the War for Cybertron Trilogy Optimus Prime figure, unfortunately, even with her laser guns removed in vehicle mode, Elita-1 is still too wide that the trailer can't close up. So unfortunately, Legacy Elita-1 has too bulky of a vehicle mode to fit inside Optimus Prime's trailer. So if you want to replicate having Elita-1 in Optimus Prime's trailer, I was about to say the Netflix version could fit, but it doesn't either, so if you do want to try and fit Legacy Elita-1 in Optimus Prime's trailer, you might have a better chance of fitting her inside there in robot mode, but I'm not going to show that off right now because the video's gone on much longer than it has. So apart from weapon storage with laser guns, another minor gripe I have with Elita-1 is that her head is visible on the bottom of the vehicle mode. She does have blatant visible head syndrome. And I tried to rotate it around to hide her face, but her head ends up hitting the bottom of the hood and wants to push it up and prevent her vehicle mode from transforming properly. So unfortunately, you do have to have her robot mode head exposed there on the back. If you wanted to hide her hands more properly, you could if you want. Rotate them around, but if you actually look closely inside there, it's kind of hard for my camera to pick it up, but the space that the hand occupies, it's sculpted, it's molded in a way so that the best way to have the hands is in the position right here for robot, where they were almost in robot mode. So, but again, Elita-1's vehicle mode is supposed to be Cybertron. It's supposed to be Cybertronian, not an Earth-based vehicle. So she really doesn't have to be a robot in disguise if you don't want her to be. So all in all, I do enjoy how this vehicle mode looked out. I can't wait to see the vehicle mode again when I get around to reviewing Minerva back there. So thank you guys all so much. This has been the TFN Geek. I apologize for this review going on longer than I wanted it to, but this has been my review of the Transformers Legacy Deluxe Class Elita-1 action figure. And do I recommend getting Legacy Elita-1 and adding her to your Transformers collection? Absolutely, I do. Legacy Elita-1 is a far more fun Transformers figure than Netflix Elita-1. Netflix Elita-1 has always been a nightmare and a pain to transform back and forth between robot mode and vehicle mode, but Legacy Elita-1, she's a lot more fun to transform, and even though the only place to store her laser guns is on the sides of her vehicle mode, she is pretty impressive looking. Again, this is the first ever Elita-1 action figure that's been a brand new mold and has not been a repaint or retool of a previously released Transformers figure. Overall, I do enjoy how she came out, and despite her flaws, I still think she is a necessary Transformers figure to have in your collection. One last thing I will point out is that this part right here, the center of her vehicle mode, those are two separate panel sections right there, and I just love how the back section from her robot mode legs, it molds in place with her robot mode arms to form the side of the vehicle. So that's a nice design in the engineering that went into this figure. Thank you guys all so much. This has been the TFN Geek, and until next time, you guys, stay safe, stay healthy. If I can't get around to my next review today, hopefully I'll get around to it either tonight or tomorrow. And until next time, you guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and until next time, transform and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.